Hey everyone, welcome to the Anarchy Podcast. 99% of traders will never make consistent profits. So why listen to the 99% of advice? On this show, we're going to challenge some of the most hallowed and repeated tenets of trading. And in doing so, set you up to succeed where others fail. Spoiler alert, we don't have a secret strategy or magic wand that will let you skip out on the hard work of learning the markets. But we can debunk viewpoints that are holding you back. If that sounds good to you, come join us. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Anarchy Podcast. Jordan, how you doing?
Hey, doing well. Looking forward to our conversation today. It's honestly, I feel like it's a bit of a controversial one, discussing time frames. I know we kind of have a bit of a, I wouldn't say unique view, but definitely one that's not discussed very much, especially among the gurus. So looking forward to
it
getting
actually
into
is. I feel like it. Yeah, I feel like it is a unique view. I've never heard anyone say this before. At least not the 99% of people don't say
actually,
this before.
it's true. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever heard anyone ever say it. You're right. I
yeah,
think we've
so this
said
might
it.
ruffle
I think it's just you and me.
We might ruffle some feathers, but we're gonna try to back up our claim here. But why don't you go ahead and kind of give a rundown, a quick summary of how we view time frames, and especially for beginners, how we differ from the mainstream.
Yeah, so when you're learning trading, and especially when you're learning from gurus, and this applies to you and me. Like when you and I were learning from some gurus, we were always told trade on the higher time frame. Things are slower. Price action is more clear. So trade on the day. Make sure you're trading on the day. On the day time frame, meaning each candlestick is a day, or at the maximum, trade on the 4 hours. So each candlestick is 4 hours. And that's what we were taught. So every time you put a trade in, you would put a trade in, and then you would wait 1, 2, 3 days for that trade to transpire and to actually see if the market went in the direction that you anticipated that it would due to your analysis.
Yep.
But that takes us to an important thing, and this is what I think this is where we start getting a bit controversial, is let's say I wanted to get stronger working out. How would you recommend that I go and I lift one weight and I just lift it one time for the day and then I leave the gym?
Right. No, we would not.
Exactly. And that's where I think lower time frames come into play. So why don't you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So you're right. Everyone I've ever heard says, hey, especially if you're starting out, if you're a beginner, start with higher time frames, like 4 hours or 1 hour maximum I've ever heard. Right. But like you said, you end up you'll go all day. If you're trading 4 hour to 4 hour candles, you'll go all day. You could sit in front of your computer all day for 8 hours, the whole workday, and you'll see
candles.
You'll see 2 candles, and so now, if you're, and this goes back to kind of the real basic stuff that we've talked about, which is not trusting in indicators or stuff like that, but really learning the flow of the market and really learning price action. It's impossible to learn price action when you're watching 2 candles a day. It's just impossible, or at least it slows down your learning to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times as long as it should, because you're not learning price action, and you also don't get many setups. So you're a beginner, you sit in front of your computer and you watch price, and price doesn't move, right? You watch 2 hours and not one candle goes by. Or if you're trading on the 1 hour, 4 candles go by. You've learned nothing, right? Price hasn't flowed at all. You're not really being able to see what's happening or train your brain how to see the flow. And so what you end up doing, and you also don't see many good setups. And so what you end up doing as a beginner is hopping to a bunch of bad trades because you don't want to waste your time, or you end up skimming. So you, instead of really diving deep into one or two markets, like really learning the NASDAQ, really learning oil or gold or Tesla, whatever you trade, right? Instead of really doing a deep dive and learning how those flow, you can't, because you're trading on the 1 hour or 4 hour time
Yeah,
frame.
I
And so
mean,
you get
I can really
between a
relate to
bunch.
that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I can really relate to that. I remember when I started trading and I was trading on the 4 hour. I literally watched every single forex, a forex pair of the major and minor forex
Mhm.
pairs. So I had 32 forex or 28 forex pairs that I was watching, plus indices, and that's because if I watched if I was just watching one pair, I mean, it might take days or weeks for that ever to have a setup.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so and we were talking about this. We might eventually do kind of a series where we talk about how trading is similar to certain sports that maybe people are more familiar with. But there's something that's similar into kind of like defense on football that I've seen, which is like, to try to make an example of this, if you're a safety, right, and your job is to decide where the wide receivers are going to run, or where the running back is going to go. You're trying to decide where their route is going. So you have to anticipate it. But if you showed a safety just a still frame of where everybody is on the field at a given time and told them, hey, try to decide, show me where that person is going, they'd have a really hard time. I mean, they might be able to go, well, the guy's hips are turned a certain way. Maybe he's doing a hook route. Maybe this guy's about to, but they'd have a really hard time. Like, what makes a safety, the best safeties in the NFL, be able to tell where a wide receiver is about to go, is they've watched the play develop. They've watched the quarterback look over at the wide receiver. They've seen the wide receiver's hands twitching. They've watched the explosiveness as they come out. They've seen that slight hesitation as they make the hook. They've watched the play develop, and now they're able to use that to read, well, hey, you know what? I think I think this hook route is just a fake. I think he's going to go streaking down the sideline. And so they've watched the play move. And what ends up happening with traders, the way this kind of relates, we're traders who trade on the higher time frames and end up just skipping between a bunch of different pairs. They're looking at snapshots, right? They
Yeah.
haven't seen it develop, because you can't. You're trading on a 1 hour time frame. You can't watch the play develop. You don't have that amount of time. And so they end up losing all of that information of
Context.
seeing
Yeah.
seeing the flow, seeing the momentum. It's not this, just seeing a picture of the market is not the same as having watched the market get there. It's just not the same.
Yeah, no, so true. And I think, to take the analogy a bit farther, the fact is, who are the most successful football players? Like, when you think of most people, when they tell you, oh, why was this guy so good? Why was this guy so good? It's because the guys usually who are the best were the ones who watched the most tape. Especially if you look
Mm-hmm.
at like quarterbacks, they were the ones who watched the most tape. And why
Yeah.
was it? And why were they able to be a success? Because Tom Brady could pull a million different hours of various tapes and reads and looks that he'd seen on tape, and he had all that at his fingertips. And that is what trading on smaller amount of pairs, 2 or 3 pairs on a lower time frame, allows you to do. It's watching that tape. It's generating all of those hours and hours of tape where you can start actually saying, hey, I've seen this before.
Yeah, and you know what? And what a lot of people don't understand about trading is, you might not even be, Tom Brady might not be able to fully tell you why he thinks there's a blitz coming, right? He
Yeah,
might not even be
exactly.
fully tell you why those guys who are showing blitz are actually going to pull back. He's just seen it so many times that he's trained himself, and that's where these lower time frames come from. And just using our personal, I trade on the 1 minute, you trade on the 1 and 5 minute time frames. What that allows us to do is focus in really tight. I trade the NAS and gold primarily, and that's all I'll watch, and I'll watch them develop. And instead of taking these snapshots throughout the day of, oh, here's the market at like on a 4 minute, candle, I get a
4 hour
4 hour candle.
candle. Yep.
I get to watch. I get to watch it develop. I get to watch. If I sit in front of my computer for 2 hours, I just watched 120 candles go by. Well, if you're on the 4 hour candlestick, what do you like? That's weeks. Like
Yeah.
I just got weeks of experience just sitting in front of my computer and watching the flow.
Yeah. And
And
I mean,
also,
that's so true. That's so true.
yeah,
I
being able
mean,
to see a bunch of good setups as well, and being, not having that FOMO because, hey, something happens. Well, cool. I'll just sit here for another hour, and another one will show up. I'm sure, right?
yeah. Yeah, so true. I mean, and I trade on the 5 because I trade London session, and I actually usually, honestly, I'm usually working and trading at the same time. So I'm doing something else. So I trade
Mhm.
the 5 just because it's a bit slower. And I do trade a couple more pairs just because the markets don't move very much during the London session compared to, you trading the New York.
Right.
But yeah, it's getting that I noticed, I think I was the one who actually got you onto the lower time frame because I came
Yeah.
across this accidentally. Like you and I had both been trading the 1 day and the 4 hour time frames. And then I
Right.
came across some guy, who was doing like scalping. I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. Like I was bored and I was like, let me do some paper trading, just doing the 1 in 5 minutes. And I discovered I'm like, my trading pretty much overnight started improving dramatically as soon I can point to that exact time when I actually noticed a feasible, a measurable difference in my trading ability as soon as I switched to lower time frames and higher reps.
Yeah, exactly. It really is high reps. That's a great word to use because you're getting a lot more practice of watching. You're zoning in, right? Because you're able to focus on a few different things, or maybe one or two, depending on what session you're in, and then you're able to get those repetitions in, see a bunch of setups, some good, some bad, and get practice. And just to quickly, the major reason a lot of these gurus say, hey, start on the higher time frames is, well, it moves slower, so it gives you more time to set up. If you're trading the 1 hour, that means what? You have an hour to decide whether to take a setup. Like, how long it does not take long to decide whether to take a trade. It just doesn't. Um, because you should be preparing. You should be preparing ahead of time. You should be looking at the chart, going, "Hey, if it reaches here, and if it's showing signs of whatever you do to take a trade, then I'm going to take it." You should be preparing, and then when it happens, you go for it. It shouldn't be taking you hours to decide to take a trade, and it's such a weird thing, but I've never heard it before. I've never heard this before. Every new trader is told to start on high time frames, and what we feel like is that just slows down your progress
Oh,
dramatically.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, both of us have seen that in our own, in our own trading. As soon as we switched over to doing, like, I almost felt it, like when I first started, I almost was like, I felt like I was kind of betraying my guru because I was like, oh, I'm going and scalping, like this is only what people do who want to lose money. No, it's not. It's
Yeah.
actually how you can get more reps in. But most people who you hear from, that's not what you're going to hear.
Well, and it doesn't even make any sense, right? Because the market is fractal, right? And what
Yep.
that means is, anybody doesn't know what fractal is. It's scale invariant. In other words, you can't look at a weekly, daily, and second chart and tell the difference. You can't
No,
look.
like
They look
if I showed you a picture of different time, you would not be able to tell me, oh, this is the 1 minute of the 5 minute of the 15 minute
right.
of the 1 hour.
Yeah, you cannot tell the difference. There's no difference in how a 1 second chart works and a 1 week chart or 1 month chart works. They all work exactly the same. So there might be slightly, different flows and how they work through each day and the news and stuff like that, but you can't tell just by looking at the chart. And so there's no difference. If you trade on the 1 hour, all you're doing is slowing yourself down and making it a huge temptation to get into bad trades and bad setups and to skim around a bunch of different markets instead of really zoning in. And I just feel like there's no upside. It's kind of sad. I think it slows a lot of people down and discourages people into making poor judgments.
Yep. Fully
Yeah,
agreed. So, I mean, big takeaway is don't be even if you feel like, okay, I'm going to stick with doing 1 hour, don't be afraid to get down into the 5 minute and practice, because let's be honest, practicing on the 5 minute will actually then be able to be used on the higher time frames if you want. Like
that
that's the awesome thing. If how you trade on the 5 minute, you can trade the exact same way on the 15 minute if you want,
yeah,
or the hour. But the
yeah.
5 minutes is going to be able to allow you to put those reps in. Don't be afraid of that.
That's why I feel it's exactly the opposite, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're an expert trader and you already can make money on the markets, well, now you can take a trade that takes 4 days to solidify and go your way, right? Like you can afford to do that. A
Yeah.
beginner trader who needs reps.
Yep.
And I'm not by reps, we're not talking about over trading, right? We just mean you're going to
Watching
be
the market,
time.
times watching the
Yeah.
market, seeing setups develop, taking
Yes. Yeah.
trades. Yeah.
Yeah. Reps as in waiting for good setups. You're going to get more good setups, lower time frames. If you're a good trader, you can afford to take days. If you're a new trader, you need that time, you need those reps, and you need the focus on one or two, maybe three markets, and just really zone in. And that's kind of our takeaway, and that's our advice to kind of newer traders. Don't be afraid to get into lower time frames and really zone in. So, you got anything else, Jordan?
No, that's it. Get those reps
Yeah.
in, baby. You get those reps
Yeah.
in the gym, get those reps in trading, and you'll be starting to see a difference. Kind of like I use the gym analogy, man. You start
Yeah.
doing those reps, you will see an immediate difference within 2 or 3 weeks. You're already going to be noticing differences, just like the gym. No, you're not going to be benching 305 or whatever, but you're going to be seeing differences, and that's the key thing.